The betrayal happened again on my 31st birthday, reborn in a new form, but with the same familiar sting. This time they gave me socks. Gas station socks with the price sticker still attached, while they toasted Olivia's ex-boyfriend for his promotion. "To Ryan!" Chelsea raised her champagne glass, her diamond bracelet catching the light as our entire table of friends lifted their drinks in unison. "Making partner at 34. We always knew you'd crush it." I sat frozen, the cheap polyester socks still in my lap, their plastic packaging crinkling under my trembling fingers. The restaurant around us buzzed with ambient chatter and the soft clink of expensive silverware against porcelain plates. I breathed in the rich aroma of truffle oil and butter from our shared appetizers, trying to ground myself in the moment rather than the humiliation. "Thanks, guys." Ryan flashed his perfect white teeth, running a hand through his carefully styled hair. "Means a lot that you all came out tonight to celebrate." I frowned. "I thought we were celebrating my birthday?" The words escaped before I could stop them. 6 pairs of eyes turned to me, blinking in momentary confusion as if they'd forgotten I was there. The birthday girl. The reason for this dinner in the first place. "Of course we are, Maya." Olivia reached across the table to squeeze my hand, her rose gold watch, a gift from this very group last month, glinting under the restaurant's mood lighting. "But Ryan's news is huge, too. We can celebrate both, right?" Her voice carried that familiar, condescending tone that always made my stomach knot. The same tone she used when telling me my promotion to senior travel consultant wasn't really the same as her being made marketing director. I nodded and forced a smile, the kind that doesn't reach your eyes. "Absolutely. Congratulations, Ryan." He raised his glass to me, but his eyes were already shifting back to Olivia, drawn to her like everyone always was. I took a sip of my water and watched as Olivia tossed her caramel highlights over one shoulder, laughing at something James had whispered in her ear. The waiter appeared at my elbow, the scent of his cologne momentarily overpowering the food aromas. "More wine for the birthday girl?" he asked, already reaching for my empty glass. "Please," I replied, perhaps too eagerly. As he poured, I noticed Chelsea sliding a large gift bag toward Olivia. "We got you a little something too, Liv, since your housewarming is next week." My fingers tightened around the stem of my freshly filled wine glass, the housewarming I hadn't been invited to yet. Another oversight, surely. Olivia gasped dramatically as she pulled out an expensive-looking decanter set. "You guys, this is exactly what I wanted for the new bar cart." "We know," James grinned. "You only texted the link to all of us about 12 times." I took another sip of wine to hide my expression. She never texted me any links. "Open yours, Maya," Olivia nudged, gesturing to the small, clumsily wrapped package sitting on the table in front of me. Her tone suggested she was being generous by redirecting attention to me. I carefully untied the ribbon, feeling their impatient eyes on me. Inside the crumpled tissue paper were the socks, black with little pink flamingos, the $4.99 sticker from Quick Stop still affixed to the packaging. While they'd coordinated to get Olivia crystal barware, someone had stopped for gas and grabbed the first thing they saw by the register for me. "Thanks," I said, the word hollow in my throat. "Very practical." "They're fun," Chelsea insisted, "because you like travel and stuff, and flamingos are tropical, like your trips." I was a travel agent who specialized in luxury European destinations. I'd never sent a single client to see flamingos. While the conversation drifted back to Ryan's partnership and Olivia's new condo, I carefully folded the wrapping paper, noticing something tucked inside. The receipt. Whoever wrapped this had accidentally included the evidence of their last-minute thoughtlessness. Quick Stop, Purchased today at 5:47 p.m. Our reservation was for 6 o'clock. Something shifted inside me as I carefully tucked the receipt into my wallet. A small ember of something I hadn't felt in years, something I'd suppressed during a decade of friendship with these people. It felt like dignity, finally waking up from a long slumber. I thought back to my 30th birthday, when they forgot to order a cake, and Olivia offered me a bite of her dessert while everyone took photos of her, not me. And my 29th, when our planned wine tasting tour mysteriously got rescheduled to accommodate Olivia's work presentation, making it impossible for me to attend my own celebration. The pattern emerged clearly, like suddenly focusing a pair of binoculars. It wasn't thoughtlessness. It was deliberate. I excused myself to the bathroom, receipt clutched in my hand, the ember growing warmer. In the elegant marble stall, I leaned against the cool wall and closed my eyes, the muffled sounds of jazz and conversation seeping through from the restaurant. The subtle scent of lavender hand soap permeated the air as I took deep breaths. When I looked in the mirror to fix my lipstick, I saw something different in my eyes. Something reborn. This was the last time they would make me feel small. I returned to the table with a serene smile that none of them noticed. As they clinked glasses for another toast to someone else's accomplishments, I silently made a promise to myself. I would remember this feeling. I would document it. And somehow, some way, I would make sure they felt it too. Just once, so they would understand. The socks went into my purse. The receipt went into a special compartment in my wallet. Both would serve as reminders of what needed to change. 3 weeks after the birthday dinner, I was at work processing vacation packages when my phone buzzed. A notification from a group chat I didn't recognize had popped up on my screen. Final head count for Greece, 6 confirmed. Maya's out, so we have even couples. Perfect! I frowned, scanning the names in the chat. Olivia, Chelsea, James, Ryan, Tara, and Michael. All my friends, discussing a trip I knew nothing about. I'd been accidentally added to the wrong group chat, a glimpse behind the curtain. My heart hammered in my chest as I scrolled up through their previous messages. Photos of whitewashed buildings against azure seas, links to luxury hotels in Santorini, flight options for the exact week I'd mentioned wanting to take vacation this year. Does everyone have their passports updated? Olivia had written yesterday. Should we coordinate outfits for the sunset dinner in Oya? I set my phone down on my desk, my hands suddenly clammy. The office around me continued as normal. Phones ringing, keyboards clicking, the coffee machine gurgling in the break room. But I felt disconnected from it all, floating in a bubble of betrayal. They were planning an elaborate group trip to Greece, my dream destination that I'd talked about for years, without me. Not even a consideration for an invitation. Before I could process this fully, my phone lit up with another text. This one a direct message from Olivia. Coffee at Luminary in an hour? Need your expert travel advice on something? I texted back a thumbs up, the irony burning in my throat. An hour later, I pushed open the heavy wooden door of Luminary Coffee. The rich aroma of freshly ground beans and warm pastries enveloping me. The cafe buzzed with afternoon energy. Students hunched over laptops, business meetings in hushed tones, baristas calling out elaborate drink orders. I spotted Olivia immediately, holding court at our usual corner table with Chelsea and Tara. As I approached, I noticed Olivia hastily sliding something into her purse, something navy blue with a familiar gold emblem. A passport. Maya! Chelsea waved enthusiastically, as if she were genuinely happy to see me. Perfect timing. We just ordered you an oat milk latte. Thanks, I said, sliding into the empty chair. So, what's the travel advice you need? The three of them exchanged quick glances before Olivia leaned forward, her elbows on the table. I'm thinking of surprising Michael with a weekend getaway for our anniversary. Something domestic, maybe Napa. What do you think?" The lie flowed so easily from her lips that I almost admired the performance. I watched her face carefully as she spoke, noting how she maintained perfect eye contact, how she casually twisted her hair around one finger, her tell when she was being deceptive. "Napa would be lovely this time of year," I replied evenly. "When are you thinking of going?" "Maybe next month," she said vaguely, stirring her iced coffee. "Nothing set in stone yet, just ideas." I could smell the fresh ink from her passport, that distinct chemical odor government documents have when newly printed. My years working at the travel agency had made me attuned to these details. Her passport wasn't just updated, it was brand new. "Any big travel plans for the summer?" I asked casually, looking around at all three of them. "Nothing major," Chelsea shrugged, not meeting my eyes. "Maybe a beach weekend or something local." "Work is too crazy for anything big," Tara added, her fingers nervously tracing the rim of her cup. I nodded thoughtfully, taking a sip of my latte. "That's too bad. I was actually thinking of planning something for us all. Maybe Greece? I have some amazing industry contacts in Santorini." Their faces flickered with panic for just a millisecond before Olivia recovered. "Greece? Wouldn't that be a dream? But you know, with everyone's schedules and budgets, it's probably not realistic this year." "Definitely not with my new mortgage payment," Chelsea added quickly. I smiled and changed the subject, letting them believe their secret was safe. But inside, I was calculating, planning. The ember that had ignited on my birthday was now a steady flame. Back at my office, I quietly pulled up the airline reservation system. Working for Lux Journeys had its advantages, namely, full access to flight manifests and hotel bookings. It took me less than 10 minutes to locate their reservations. Athens, June 15th, connecting through Paris. First class. Hotel bookings in Santorini, Mykonos, and Athens. I thought about confronting them, sending a screenshot of their itinerary to the group chat with a question mark, making them squirm through an explanation. But something stopped me. A better idea was forming. With practiced efficiency, I booked myself on the same flights. Not first class, I couldn't afford that, but economy on the same plane. Then I reserved a room at each of their hotels, ensuring I was on the same floor but far enough away to remain undetected. My hands trembled slightly as I confirmed the final booking, a mixture of anxiety and exhilaration flooding my system. The total cost made me wince, nearly 2 months' salary, but I had savings, and this felt necessary in a way I couldn't quite articulate. That evening in my apartment, I created a new Instagram account under a false name. I followed all of them, along with their frequent contacts. Within days, I had mapped their entire social network, noting who interacted most frequently with whom, who shared secrets, who posted passive-aggressive comments. In the back of my closet, I found a leather-bound journal I'd received as a gift years ago but never used. The paper was thick and creamy, the leather cover soft with age. I ran my fingers over its textured surface and breathed in its earthy scent before opening to the first blank page. April 17th, I wrote, my pen moving deliberately across the paper. Birthday dinner. Socks from Quick Stop purchased 13 minutes before reservation. On the second page. May 8th. Greece trip planned without my knowledge. Deliberate exclusion confirmed by direct lies when questioned. I continued documenting, adding details about past incidents I could recall clearly. The time Olivia accidentally sent my ex-boyfriend a misleading photo of me with another guy. The job opportunity Chelsea knew about but never mentioned to me, despite knowing I was looking for exactly that position. The journal became my confidant. The rustle of pages turning in the quiet of my apartment a comforting sound. With each entry, I felt less like a victim and more like an observer, detached, methodical, patient. In the weeks leading up to the trip, I prepared methodically. I studied Greek phrases, researched each location thoroughly, and carefully selected a wardrobe that would help me blend into the background. Neutral colors. Nothing memorable. I told no one at work about my plans except my direct supervisor, explaining that I needed personal time and would be unreachable. He agreed without question. I had years of unused vacation days accumulated. The night before my flight, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror, the harsh fluorescent light casting shadows across my face. I looked different somehow. My eyes held a clarity I hadn't seen in years. "They won't even see you coming," I whispered to my reflection, the words hanging in the steamy air. I felt something shift in my chest. A quiet power move that no one would witness but me. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming something I'd surrendered long ago without even realizing it. My worth. The Athens airport bustled with summer tourists when I arrived, the air conditioning struggling against the Mediterranean heat that seeped through the terminal's glass walls. I kept my distance as I followed my friends through passport control, watching Olivia's animated gestures as she undoubtedly dominated the conversation. The scent of fresh orange blossoms mixed with jet fuel drifted through the open doors as I trailed them to the taxi stand, maintaining a careful distance. They piled into 2 taxis headed for the Hotel Grande Bretagne, while I waited 15 minutes before following in my own cab. "First time in Greece?" the driver asked, his accent thick but his English clear. "Yes," I replied, watching the ancient city unfold outside my window. The Acropolis loomed in the distance, a monument to endurance. "You come alone? No friends, no family?" He glanced at me in the rearview mirror. I smiled slightly. "I'm meeting people," I said, the half-truth bitter on my tongue. At the hotel, I checked in efficiently, declining assistance with my single suitcase. My room was on the 3rd floor, while my friends occupied a row of upgraded suites on the 4th. I'd chosen this strategic position deliberately, close enough to monitor, far enough to remain undetected. After a quick shower to wash away the travel grime, I dressed in a nondescript sundress and large sunglasses. My hair tucked under a wide-brimmed hat, I made my way to the rooftop bar where, according to an Instagram story Chelsea had posted 20 minutes earlier, the group was having welcome drinks. I selected a table in the corner, partially obscured by a large potted olive tree, and ordered a glass of white wine. From this vantage point, I could observe them clearly, laughing, toasting, taking selfies against the backdrop of the Acropolis glowing in the late afternoon sun. The waiter delivered my wine, its crisp aroma mixing with the scent of sunscreen and Mediterranean herbs from the restaurant's kitchen. I sipped slowly, my eyes never leaving their table. "Can you believe we pulled this off without Maya finding out?" Chelsea's voice carried across the terrace as the ambient noise momentarily quieted. I was sure I'd slip up during coffee. I tensed, straining to hear more over the soft bouzouki music playing in the background. "She's so oblivious," Tara laughed, the ice in her cocktail clinking as she gestured. "Remember her birthday? She actually thought we were celebrating her." My fingers tightened around the stem of my wine glass, the cool crystal a contrast to my warming skin. "To be fair," James interjected, "it was technically her birthday dinner." "Please," Olivia rolled her eyes, leaning back in her chair. The sunlight caught her expensively highlighted hair. "Maya's birthday was just a convenient excuse to get Ryan out to dinner with us. I couldn't exactly say, 'Hey, everyone, let's celebrate my ex-boyfriend's promotion.'" They all laughed, the sound grating against my ears. "Besides," Olivia continued, lowering her voice slightly, "I only keep Maya around because she makes me look better by comparison. You know what my boss said last week? that next to Maya, I seem extraordinarily dynamic. Her exact words. Another round of laughter. I felt something crack inside me, not breaking, but hardening. Plus, her employee discount codes for hotels are clutch, Michael added, raising his glass. Saved us at least 30% on this trip. I froze, the wine turning to acid in my stomach. My employee discount. The one tied to my personal employee number. The one I had never given them permission to use. The one that, if discovered being used fraudulently, could cost me my job. The chatter at their table continued, but the words blurred as my mind raced. They must have accessed my work laptop at some point when I stepped away. Or perhaps Olivia had watched me enter my credentials during one of our working brunches at her apartment. My hands shook as I placed my half-finished wine on the table and retreated from the bar, careful to keep my face angled away from their table. Back in my room, I paced the limited space between the bed and the balcony doors, the air conditioning raising goosebumps on my arms. Using my discount without permission wasn't just a betrayal of friendship, it was potentially criminal. Each booking made with that code was tied to my employment record, with the understanding that it was for personal use only, or for immediate family under specific circumstances. I pulled out my phone, opening the Lux Journeys employee portal with trembling fingers. The login screen seemed to mock me as I entered my credentials, dreading what I might find. There it was. A record of discount codes used for 6 passengers to Greece. Multiple hotels. Nearly $12,000 in discounts that would trigger an audit if someone in corporate looked closely enough, all linked directly to my employee number. I sank onto the edge of the bed, the mattress barely yielding under my weight. The ceiling fan whirred softly overhead as I considered my options. Confronting them would alert them to my presence. Reporting the fraud to my company would require explaining how it happened, a humiliation I couldn't bear. A notification from Instagram interrupted my spiral. Olivia had posted again. A group photo at dinner, captioned, "These are the friends who make life extraordinary. #blessed Santorini tomorrow." Santorini tomorrow. I had one night to figure out my next move. Sleep evaded me despite the comfortable bed and the gentle hum of the air conditioning. I tossed and turned, my mind replaying their conversations, calculating the extent of their betrayal. By dawn, my sheets were tangled around my legs and my decision was made. At breakfast, I approached the hotel manager, Andreas, a dignified man with salt and pepper hair and immaculate posture. His office smelled of leather-bound ledgers and the faint citrus of his cologne. "Miss Parker," he greeted me with a professional smile. "How can I assist you this morning?" I took a deep breath, the air catching slightly in my throat. "I need to report a potential fraud situation involving my travel agency employer and some acquaintances who are also staying at your hotel." His expression shifted to concern. "Please, sit down." I explained the situation carefully, omitting the personal betrayal and focusing on the professional implications. As I spoke, I watched his face transition from polite interest to genuine concern. "This is indeed serious," he said when I finished. "For both your employment and potentially for our hotel's relationship with Lux Journeys. I need to access their room," I said, surprising myself with my directness. "They leave for a day tour of the Acropolis at 9. I know because I helped set up the original itinerary before I was excluded from the trip." Andreas studied me for a long moment, his fingers steepled in front of him. The ticking of an antique clock on his bookshelf punctuated the silence. "Normally this would be absolutely out of the question," he finally said. "However, as this involves potential fraud against our partner agency." He reached into his desk drawer and withdrew a key card. "Room 412. Miss Olivia Chen, correct? 1 hour only, while they are confirmed to be on the tour. I will personally escort you and remain present. This is highly irregular." My fingers closed around the keycard, its edges pressing into my palm. "Thank you. I only need to document the fraud for my employer." At precisely 9:30 a.m., with confirmation from the concierge that the entire group had departed with their tour guide, Andreas escorted me to Olivia's suite. The hallway was silent except for the distant sound of a vacuum cleaner and the soft shuffle of Andreas's polished shoes on the carpet. "1 hour," he reminded me as the door swung open. Olivia's explosive personality was evident in the chaos of the room. Clothes strewn across every surface, makeup scattered across the bathroom counter, the lingering scent of her signature perfume hanging in the air like an invisible claim to the space. I moved methodically, checking obvious hiding places first. Within minutes, I located her laptop under a pile of shopping bags in the closet. The password was predictable, her childhood dog's name followed by her birth year. The same combination she used for everything. The laptop hummed to life, its screen illuminating my face in the dim room. Andreas stood by the door, checking his watch periodically. 15 minutes have passed, he noted. I nodded, fingers flying across the keyboard as I navigated through Olivia's files. What I found made my blood run cold. Emails to my supervisor questioning my competence, forwarded conversations with clients where she'd intercepted their requests and redirected their business to her friend's new travel startup. A draft message to HR suggesting I'd been inflating my sales numbers. But the most damning evidence was a folder labeled simply Maya. Inside were screenshots of job postings I'd been interested in, alongside emails to the hiring managers from an anonymous account warning them about an unstable applicant they should avoid. There were photos of me from various social gatherings, unflattering ones she'd never posted but kept, perhaps as ammunition. Notes about my insecurities, things I'd confided during vulnerable moments. A comprehensive database of every perceived weakness I'd ever revealed. And most shocking of all, a detailed record of my past relationships, including logs of text messages between Olivia and my most recent ex-boyfriend that predated our breakup. Messages where she systematically fed him doubts about me, planting seeds of insecurity until he finally ended things. "Miss Parker." Andreas's voice seemed to come from a great distance. "We need to leave soon." I nodded mutely, quickly emailing myself the evidence of the employee discount fraud, along with select files from the Maya folder. As an afterthought, I forwarded the emails to a second account I maintained, ensuring the evidence couldn't be easily erased. The door closed behind us with a soft click as we exited. In the hallway, I turned to Andreas, my voice steadier than I expected. "Thank you. I found what I needed." He studied my face for a moment, something like compassion flickering in his eyes. "These people, they are not your friends, I think." "No," I agreed, the word liberating in its simplicity. "They never were." Back in my room, I organized the evidence I'd gathered, creating a systematic record of Olivia's sabotage. The betrayal was more calculated than I could have imagined, stretching back years. This wasn't casual thoughtlessness, it was deliberate destruction. As I worked, a notification appeared on my phone, an email from my boss. Subject line: urgent, unauthorized use of employee discounts. The flame inside me, once just an ember, now burned white-hot. It was time to accelerate my plans. What none of them knew, what I had carefully kept hidden from everyone, was that while they were busy undermining me, I had been building something of my own. 3 years ago, during a particularly difficult period after Olivia had accidentally sabotaged my relationship with Daniel, I had channeled my hurt into a side project. Using my extensive knowledge of luxury travel and my genuine passion for authentic local experiences, I had created Varity Voyages, a high-end travel blog and personalized itinerary service. In the beginning, it was just a creative outlet, I would write detailed guides to hidden gems in popular destinations, leveraging my industry contacts to gain access to experiences most travelers never discovered. I kept my identity anonymous, using only my middle name, Varity, as my brand. Slowly, the blog gained traction. Travel influencers began citing my guides. Luxury hotels reached out for partnerships. An exclusive credit card company contracted me to create bespoke travel experiences for their top-tier members. By the time of the birthday dinner with the gas station socks, Varity Voyages was generating more income than my job at Lux Journeys. 2 months before the Greece trip, I had secured a 7-figure investment to expand into a full-service, invitation-only travel concierge business. None of my so-called friends knew anything about it. They were too busy talking over me to notice I had stopped sharing details of my life. In my Athens hotel room, I opened my laptop and logged into the Varity Voyages administrative dashboard. The metrics glowed back at me. Over 2 million unique monthly visitors, a waitlist of clients willing to pay premium prices for access to my services, partnership offers from the very hotels my friends were currently staying in. My phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. The screen displayed a number I didn't immediately recognize, though the country code was familiar. "Hello?" I answered cautiously. "Miss Parker, this is Eleni Papadakis from Celestial Properties." The woman's voice was warm, her Greek accent melodic. "I'm calling to confirm our meeting tomorrow in Santorini. Mr. Dimitriou is very excited to discuss the potential acquisition." I closed my eyes, centering myself. "Yes, of course. Is 2 p.m. at his office still convenient?" "Actually, he's suggested his villa in Oya, more private for discussions of this magnitude. A car will collect you from your hotel." After confirming the details, I ended the call and leaned back in my chair, gazing out at the Athenian skyline as dusk painted the ancient city in shades of gold and pink. The Acropolis stood illuminated against the darkening sky, a testament to human achievement and endurance. Stavros Dimitriou was one of Greece's most successful hospitality entrepreneurs, with a portfolio of luxury properties throughout the Mediterranean. He was also, potentially, about to become my business partner if tomorrow's meeting went as planned. The timing couldn't have been more perfect. My mind drifted to another secret I'd been keeping. 6 months ago, my maternal grandmother had passed away. The woman who had raised me after my parents' death, who had taught me my worth when the world tried to diminish it. A woman of quiet dignity and surprising resources. Her estate had finally cleared probate last week. The inheritance was substantial, far more than anyone might have guessed from her modest lifestyle. Enough to change everything. Her final instructions had been clear. Don't tell a soul until you know who deserves to know. At the time, I'd thought she was being overly cautious. Now I recognized her wisdom. A soft knock at my door startled me from my reflections. I crossed the room cautiously, checking through the peephole before opening. Andreas stood in the hallway, his expression grave. "Miss Parker, may I speak with you briefly?" I invited him in, watching as he declined to sit, instead standing with perfect posture near the desk. "I felt you should know," he began, his voice low, "that the woman, Ms. Chen, she was asking questions at the front desk this evening, about other American guests, specifically if anyone had checked in alone in the past 2 days. My pulse quickened. Does she suspect I'm here? I do not believe so. My staff is very discreet." He hesitated, then added, "But there is something else. A man came looking for you specifically this afternoon, not one from her group." "Did he leave a name?" Andreas handed me a business card. "Julian Fitzgerald, from Condé Nast Traveler. He said it was regarding Varity Voyages." I stared at the card, my mind racing. I hadn't publicly connected myself to the Varity brand yet. The fact that this journalist had tracked me to Athens was concerning. "Thank you, Andreas. If he returns, please tell him I'll be in touch after my meeting in Santorini." After he left, I paced the room, the plush carpet muffling my footsteps. The walls suddenly felt too close, the air too still. I needed to get out, to think. The night air of Athens embraced me as I left the hotel through a side entrance, the scent of jasmine and grilled meat from nearby tavernas filling my senses. I walked without direction, my mind sorting through possibilities. If Julian Fitzgerald had connected me to Varity Voyages, others could too. The timeline for my plans might need acceleration. As I rounded a corner, voices ahead made me instinctively step into the shadow of a doorway. Olivia and Ryan were walking toward me, arm in arm, clearly returning early from whatever evening activity the group had planned. "I'm telling you, it's weird," Olivia was saying, her voice carrying in the quiet street. "Chelsea's client specifically asked about working with Maya's replacement at Lux. Like they knew something we don't." Ryan shrugged. "Maybe she's finally getting fired. You've been setting that up for months." Olivia laughed, the sound echoing off the ancient stone buildings. "True. Between the discount code thing and the emails to her boss, she should be unemployed by the time we get back from this trip." They passed without noticing me, their conversation fading as they continued towards the hotel. I remained in the shadows, my breath shallow, taking in what I'd just heard. Chelsea's client. Someone I had worked with before. Someone who now knew about my other identity. The pieces began to connect. Back in my room, I made 3 phone calls in quick succession. The first to my assistant at Varity Voyages, confirming that the contracts for the Celestial Properties Partnership were ready for signature. The second to my grandmother's attorney, authorizing specific transfers we had previously discussed. The third to Julian Fitzgerald, leaving a message that I would meet him, but on my terms, and only after certain events had transpired. I then sat down at the desk and opened my leather journal, the pages now half filled with documented betrayals and calculated responses. I turned to a fresh page and began to write, the pen moving decisively across the paper. May 24th, Athens, final phase implementation. Targets have accelerated timeline through their own actions. Proceed with Santorini confrontation. I outlined each step methodically, considering contingencies and potential reactions. By the time I finished, dawn was breaking over the ancient city, golden light spilling through my window. In less than 24 hours, I would be in Santorini. In 72 hours, I would attend the charity gala at the Mystique Resort, an event I knew my friends had been invited to through Olivia's marketing connections, an event where Stavros Dimitriou would be announcing his company's new partnership with an innovative force in luxury travel. I closed the journal and placed it carefully in my suitcase. The familiar ember in my chest had transformed into something steadier, more controlled. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about justice and reclamation. Before leaving the room for breakfast, I sent one final email to the Human Resources Department at Nexus Media Group, the parent company that owned the marketing firm where Olivia worked. The subject line read simply, "Acquisition Inquiry, Confidential." The Santorini sunset painted the sky in impossible shades of orange and pink, the white buildings of Oia glowing as if illuminated from within. From my vantage point on the terrace of my suite at Mystique Resort, I could see the guests gathering for the charity gala in the main courtyard below. Women in flowing dresses, men in linen suits, champagne glasses catching the last golden rays of light. The air carried the scent of salt and jasmine, mingling with the subtle notes of the perfume I'd selected for this evening. A custom blend created for Varity Voyages as part of a luxury brand partnership. Nothing like the mass-market fragrance Olivia had worn for years, I smoothed my hands over the silk of my gown, a deep midnight blue piece by a Greek designer that had cost more than a month's rent. The fabric whispered against my skin as I made my final preparations, fastening diamond studs to my ears, my grandmother's, left specifically for the day you finally stand in your power, according to her letter. On the vanity lay my invitation to the gala, addressed to Maya Parker, Chief Executive Officer of Varity Voyages. Beside it, a second envelope confirmed my speaking role in tonight's proceedings. 3 sharp knocks at my door signaled my car had arrived. I took one final look in the mirror, barely recognizing the woman who stared back. Gone was the person who accepted gas station socks with a forced smile. In her place stood someone entirely new, or perhaps someone who had been there all along, waiting for permission to emerge. The resort's courtyard had been transformed for the evening, with hundreds of lanterns suspended overhead, casting a warm glow across the gathered guests. A string quartet played softly in one corner, the notes dancing on the gentle sea breeze. I paused at the entrance, taking a moment to compose myself. The trembling in my fingers wasn't from nervousness, it was anticipation, the kind that comes before a performance you've rehearsed for years. "Oh, Miss Parker." A staff member appeared at my side, his voice respectfully low. "Mr. Demetrio asked me to escort you directly to his table when you arrived." I nodded, following him through the crowd. As we moved, I felt eyes turning toward me, conversations pausing mid-sentence. The unfamiliar sensation of being seen, truly seen, prickled along my skin. We approached a large table positioned near the small stage. Stavros Demetriou rose as we neared, his imposing figure and silver hair making him instantly recognizable. Beside him sat several influential figures from the Greek business community, and, my breath caught slightly, my friends. Their backs were to me, but I would recognize Olivia's caramel highlights and Chelsea's rigid posture anywhere. They were engaged in animated conversation, undoubtedly working the room as Olivia always did at these events, collecting connections like trophies. "Maya Parker!" Stavros's voice boomed as he extended his hands in greeting. "The woman of the hour arrives." At the mention of my name, Olivia's head whipped around, her champagne glass freezing halfway to her lips. Her eyes widened in shock, confusion washing over her features as she took in my appearance, my presence at this exclusive event, and my apparent familiarity with our host. What, Maya?" she stuttered, an unusual break in her normally flawless social performance. The rest of the group turned now, Chelsea, James, Ryan, Tara, Michael, their expressions cycling through surprise, confusion, and something that looked remarkably like fear. I smiled serenely, maintaining eye contact with Stavros rather than acknowledging them immediately. I hope I haven't kept everyone waiting. "Not at all," Stavros assured me, pulling out the chair beside his, the place of honor at the table. "We were just becoming acquainted with your colleagues from America." The way he hesitated before colleagues told me everything I needed to know. In our meetings over the past 2 days, I had shared select details about my situation. Stavros, with his old world understanding of honor and loyalty, had been appropriately disgusted. I took my seat, finally allowing my gaze to land on Olivia. "What a surprise to see you all here," I said, my voice steady and pleasant. "I didn't realize you had connections to the Celestial Properties Charity Foundation." Chelsea recovered first, her socialite training kicking in. "Maya, oh my God, what are you doing here? And you look different." The subtext was clear. You don't belong here. You don't look like you. This isn't your world. "I was invited," I replied simply, accepting a glass of champagne from a passing server. The crystal felt cool against my fingers, grounding me in the moment. As were you, apparently. Olivia's firm handles some PR for one of the boutique hotel associations, Ryan explained, his expression calculating as he tried to assess the situation. But how do you— A gentle chime interrupted him as the event coordinator tapped a microphone at the podium. The courtyard quieted, all attention turning toward the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 7th Annual Aegean Preservation Gala. The coordinator's voice carried across the now silent crowd. We are honored to have so many distinguished guests with us tonight as we celebrate our efforts to protect the natural and cultural heritage of these beautiful islands. I half listened to the opening remarks, acutely aware of Olivia's eyes burning into me from across the table. She was sending rapid-fire texts under the tablecloth, undoubtedly trying to gather intelligence on my unexpected appearance. As many of you know, the coordinator continued, our foundation was facing significant challenges this year, with funding shortfalls threatening several of our key conservation programs. That is, until an anonymous donor stepped forward with an extraordinary contribution that not only saved these initiatives, but has allowed us to expand our work throughout the islands. A murmur ran through the crowd. Stavros's hand came to rest briefly on my shoulder, a gesture of acknowledgement invisible to most, but not to Olivia, whose eyes narrowed in suspicion. Tonight, we are privileged to announce that this donor has agreed to reveal their identity and share some words about their commitment to our cause. Please welcome to the stage the CEO of Varity Voyages and our foundation's most generous benefactor this year, Ms. Maya Parker. The applause that followed seemed distant as I rose from my seat, smoothing my dress with steady hands. Olivia's face had drained of color, her expression frozen somewhere between disbelief and dawning horror. The others looked similarly stunned, pieces visibly connecting in their minds but not quite forming a complete picture. The walk to the podium was only 20 steps, but it felt like crossing a threshold I could never return from. The polished wood gleamed under the lantern light as I took my position, looking out at the sea of faces, some curious, some admiring, some still confused. Thank you for that kind introduction, I began, my voice carrying clearly across the courtyard. For those who don't know me, I am indeed Maya Parker, founder and CEO of Varity Voyages. Some of you may be familiar with our work in curating extraordinary travel experiences that honor and preserve local cultures while providing unparalleled luxury. I paused, allowing my gaze to drift naturally to my table, where my former friends sat in stunned silence. What many don't know is the journey that brought me here tonight. You see, I believe that how we travel through the world mirrors how we travel through life, with curiosity, respect, and awareness of our impact on others. From a hidden pocket in my dress, I removed a small remote control, a detail arranged with the event's technical team earlier that day. With a subtle press of a button, the large projection screen behind me illuminated with the Varity Voyages logo, then transitioned to a series of images showcasing our exclusive destinations and experiences. 3 years ago, I created Varity Voyages because I saw a need for authenticity in an industry often driven by appearances, I continued, each word carefully chosen. I remained anonymous as the founder, allowing the quality of our experiences to speak for themselves rather than relying on personal connections or social leverage. Another press of the button, another slide change. This time, financial graphics appeared, growth charts, client acquisition rates, and finally, the valuation figure from our most recent funding round. The number, with its many zeros, elicited audible gasps from several tables. I couldn't resist glancing at Olivia again. She sat rigidly in her chair, her hand clutching her champagne glass so tightly I thought it might shatter. The others looked equally stricken, especially Chelsea, whose husband worked in venture capital and would immediately recognize the significance of those figures. Tonight, I'm proud to announce that Varity Voyages will be partnering with Celestial Properties to create a new standard in sustainable luxury travel throughout the Mediterranean. This partnership represents not just a business opportunity, but a philosophy that we rise higher when we lift others up rather than stepping on them to elevate ourselves. I pressed the button one final time. The screen changed to display a series of screenshots, carefully selected, meticulously edited to remove any identifying information except for what I wanted visible. Text messages about using my employee discount code, emails discussing how to exclude me from the Greece trip planning, the comment about keeping me around to make Olivia look better by comparison. I let the images remain visible just long enough for recognition to dawn on my former friends' faces, but not so long that other guests could read the details. To everyone else, they were simply generic digital communications. To my targets, they were a clear message: I know everything. In business, as in friendship, trust is essential. When that trust is betrayed, I let the words hang in the air for a beat, my eyes meeting Olivia's across the distance. We have a choice. We can become bitter, or we can become better. The screen returned to the Varity Voyages logo as I wrapped up my speech, thanking the Foundation for their important work and pledging continued support. The applause was enthusiastic as I stepped away from the podium, my heart pounding but my exterior composed. As I returned to the table, Stavros rose to take the stage, announcing the formal partnership between our companies. I reclaimed my seat, now positioned directly across from Olivia rather than at the far end. "What the hell was that?" she hissed, leaning forward, her voice low but intense. "Those were private conversations. You had no right." "I believe using someone's employee discount without permission is what has no right attached to it," I replied softly, maintaining my pleasant expression for anyone watching our exchange. "Among other things." "I don't know what game you're playing," Ryan interjected, his lawyer instincts kicking in. "But if you're implying something, you should be very careful about making accusations without evidence." I smiled, the expression not reaching my eyes. "I'm not implying anything, Ryan, and as for evidence, I have quite a comprehensive collection. But tonight isn't about that. Tonight is about new beginnings." The rest of the dinner progressed in strained silence from my former friends, while I engaged easily with Stavros and the other guests. I could feel their eyes on me throughout the evening, watching as I networked with influential attendees, accepted congratulations on the partnership announcement, and moved through the space with a confidence they had never seen in me before. As the event wound down, Stavros pulled me aside, his expression concerned. "Your friends do not look happy, Maya. Will this be a problem?" I shook my head. "They're not my friends, Stavros. And no, it won't be a problem after tonight." He studied my face for a moment, before nodding. "The car will take you back to your hotel whenever you're ready. And remember, the press conference is at 11 tomorrow." After he departed, I made my way toward the exit, pausing only when a hand caught my arm. I turned to find Chelsea, her face flushed either from champagne or emotion. "Maya, wait," she said, glancing around to ensure we weren't overheard. "What just happened? Since when are you some secret millionaire CEO? And those messages you showed were accurate representations of conversations you all had." I finished for her. "There's more where those came from. Much more." Her grip tightened slightly. "Look, if this is about the birthday thing or the trip, we can explain—" "I'm not interested in explanations, Chelsea." I gently removed her hand from my arm. "If you'll excuse me, I have an early meeting tomorrow." As I walked away, I heard Olivia's voice behind me, uncharacteristically uncertain. "Maya, please, we need to talk about this." I paused, but didn't turn around. "We will, but not tonight." The night air felt cleansing as I left the venue, the sound of the waves crashing against the cliffs below providing a soothing counterpoint to the emotional intensity of the evening. My driver held the car door open, and as I slid into the cool leather interior, I caught a glimpse of all 5 of them watching me from the entrance, their expressions a mixture of confusion, anger, and something that looked remarkably like fear. Phase 1 of my plan was complete. The public revelation had been executed perfectly, enough to shake them, to make them understand that everything had changed, but not enough to reveal my full hand. That would come tomorrow. Back in my suite, I removed my grandmother's diamonds and carefully placed them in their velvet box. The night had gone exactly as planned, yet the victory felt different than I had imagined. Not hollow, exactly, but complex, layered with emotions I hadn't anticipated. I opened my journal, turning to a fresh page to document the evening's events. My pen hovered over the paper for a moment before I wrote a single sentence. Tonto, May 26th. The truth, once spoken, cannot be unheard. Morning arrived with the brilliant Santorini sunshine streaming through my balcony doors and the persistent chiming of my phone. 17 missed calls, 26 text messages, all from them. I ignored the notifications, instead focusing on preparing for my 11 o'clock press conference. The blue suit I had selected projected exactly the image I wanted: professional, confident, unmistakably in charge. As I applied my makeup, I thought about the final phase of my plan. Today would bring the confrontation I had been anticipating for weeks, the moment when they would attempt to salvage what they could from the situation, not because they valued me, but because they now feared what I had become. The texts had grown increasingly desperate overnight. Chelsea. Maya, we really need to talk. This is crazy. Call me. Ryan. Whatever you think you know has been misinterpreted. Lawyer to non-lawyer, you should hear our side. Tara. I always supported you. Remember when I helped with your resume last year? Please don't include me in whatever this is. Michael. Hey, I think things got out of hand. Can we meet for coffee before you do anything else? And finally, from Olivia, sent at 4:37 a.m. My room, 9 a.m., or I start making calls about who really runs Varity Voyages. That last one almost made me smile. She still thought she had leverage, still believed she could control the narrative. It was almost admirable, that persistent delusion of power. At precisely 9:15 a.m., late enough to make a point, but not so late as to give her reason to act on her threat, I knocked on Olivia's door. I could hear urgent whispers from inside before the door swung open to reveal not just Olivia, but all 5 of them, arranged around the suite like a tribunal awaiting a defendant. The scent hit me immediately as I stepped inside. Olivia's signature perfume, now cloying and desperate, mixed with the acrid smell of fear. Actual physical fear, manifesting as perspiration despite the room's cool temperature. You're late, Olivia said, attempting to reclaim some authority. I remained standing near the door, declining the seat they had obviously left for me, a strategic position where I would have been surrounded by them. I'm exactly when I intended to be, I replied, my voice even. You have 15 minutes before I need to leave for my press conference. Ryan stepped forward, adopting his courtroom stance. Maya, let's be rational about this. Whatever you think you found on Olivia's laptop, I know exactly what I found, I interrupted. Emails to my boss undermining my position. Documentation of how you've used my employee discount code without permission, potentially jeopardizing my job. A folder labeled with my name containing every vulnerability I've ever shared, every insecurity I've expressed, analyzed, and weaponized. I turned to face Olivia directly. And, of course, the text exchanges with Daniel before our breakup, where you systematically convinced him I was emotionally unstable. Her face paled slightly, but she maintained her composure. You had no right to access my private communications. Just as you had no right to access my employee portal, or to forward clients from my company to your friend's travel startup, or to apply for jobs I was interested in specifically to block me from getting them. Chelsea stepped in, her socialite training kicking in as she attempted to diffuse the situation. Maya, sweetie, I think there have been some misunderstandings on all sides. We're your friends. We've supported you for years. Have you? I asked, raising an eyebrow. Tell me, Chelsea, what was the name of the client you directed away from me last month? The one who specifically asked about Maya's replacement at Lux. Her eyes widened slightly. I don't know what you're... Catherine Blackwell, I supplied. A regular client of mine who books annual trips to Lake Como, except this year she was referred to your husband's cousin's new travel agency. She mentioned it when she booked her Santorini extension through Varity Voyages last week. The silence that followed was brittle, like thin ice about to crack. I checked my watch. 10 minutes had passed. Here's what's going to happen, I said, my voice soft but firm. I've already reported the unauthorized use of my employee discount to Lux Journeys, with evidence that exonerates me from involvement. That investigation will proceed regardless of this conversation. I looked at each of them in turn, meeting their eyes steadily. As for the rest, the sabotage, the manipulation, the deliberate exclusion, I have documented everything, every incident, every betrayal, with dates, times, and supporting evidence. Michael, always the most direct of the group, cut to the chase. What do you want? Money? Is that what this is about? Because if Varity Voyages is as successful as you claim, so... This isn't about money, I interrupted, the suggestion almost amusing. This is about consequences. For the first time in our decade-long friendship, you're experiencing the consequences of how you've treated me. Olivia moved closer, her desperation now evident in the slight tremor of her hands. The smell of her perfume intensified as she approached, mixed now with the salty scent of tears she was struggling to hold back. Maya, please. I know things haven't always been perfect between us, but we can fix this. Whatever you need, an apology, space, anything, we can work through it. Her voice cracked slightly. We've been friends since college. That has to count for something. For a brief moment, I allowed myself to remember when that friendship had felt real, before the subtle undermining began, before I became the backdrop against which Olivia's star could shine more brightly, before I understood that friendship shouldn't deplete you. 5 minutes left, I noted, glancing at my watch. Is there anything else? Olivia's composure finally cracked. A tear slid down her cheek, leaving a trail in her carefully applied makeup. What can I do? Tell me how to make this right. I'll do anything. The desperation in her voice was genuine, not because she valued me, but because for the first time, she feared me. The power dynamic had shifted irrevocably, and she was scrambling to adapt. There's nothing to be done, I said simply. Our friendship, such as it was, has run its course. So that's it? Ryan interjected, disbelief evident in his tone. 10 years of friendship thrown away because of some misunderstandings and a pair of socks? I almost laughed at the absurdity of his reduction. The socks were a symptom, Ryan, not the cause, and they weren't misunderstandings. They were deliberate choices, made repeatedly, over years. My phone chimed with a reminder. Time to leave for the press conference. I moved toward the door, pausing with my hand on the handle. I should thank you, in a way. Without your collective betrayal, I might never have recognized my own worth. I might have continued accepting the scraps of your attention, grateful for the occasional acknowledgement. Olivia made one final attempt, her voice barely above a whisper. Please, just tell me what you want from me. I'll make it right. I promise. I turned back, meeting her tear-filled eyes with clarity that felt like freedom. "What I want is simple, Olivia. I want nothing from you. Nothing at all." The word nothing hung in the air between us, more devastating than any accusation could have been. Complete dismissal, total severance. "No," I added, the single syllable falling like a gavel. "Goodbye." I closed the door behind me, the soft click of the latch more final than any dramatic slam could have been. In the hallway, I took a deep breath of clean air, free from the cloying scent of Olivia's desperation. My phone continued to buzz as I walked toward the elevator, text notifications appearing one after another. I silenced it without reading the messages, knowing they would cycle through the stages of grief on my behalf. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and eventually acceptance that I was truly beyond their reach. The elevator doors opened, revealing Andreas waiting inside. He nodded respectfully. "The car is ready for your press conference, Miss Parker." "Thank you, Andreas." I stepped inside, feeling lighter with each floor we descended. "Has there been any further inquiry from Miss Chen or her friends about my presence here?" "They attempted to access your reservation details this morning," he confirmed. "As per your instructions, we provided no information." The sun was brilliant as we exited the hotel, the blue of the Aegean stretching endlessly before us. In the distance, a cruise ship made its way toward the horizon, growing smaller with each passing moment, until it was barely visible, just like some people in my life, I thought. Diminishing in importance with each step I took away from them. 6 months after Santorini, I stood in my new office overlooking Central Park, the autumn leaves creating a tapestry of red and gold against the gray Manhattan skyline. The space was everything I'd wanted. Minimalist and elegant, with floor-to-ceiling windows and carefully selected art pieces that reminded me of places I'd loved in my travels. On the credenza behind my desk sat 2 framed items side by side: the gas station receipt for the birthday socks and a neatly arranged collection of passport stamps, each marking a significant moment in my journey. A knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. "Your 10 o'clock is here," my assistant announced. "The candidate for the director of marketing position." I nodded, turning away from the window. "Send them in." The door opened to reveal a woman approximately my age, with a confident stance and a portfolio tucked under her arm. Not Olivia. She had been let go from her firm 3 months ago when Nexus Media Group, the company I'd quietly acquired through my grandmother's estate, reorganized its marketing department. "Miss Reyes," I greeted her, extending my hand. "Thank you for coming in today." The interview proceeded smoothly, and I found myself genuinely impressed by her ideas and approach. Unlike my former friends, she spoke of collaborative success rather than individual achievement, of lifting teams rather than using them as stepping stones. After she left, I reviewed my schedule for the remainder of the day. A lunch meeting with Stavros, who was in town for the International Travel Expo. A conference call with our new sustainable tourism partners in the Pacific Islands. And later, a private jet waiting to take me to a weekend retreat in Iceland, a solo trip to celebrate the 1-year anniversary of Varity Voyages, going public with my identity as its founder. My phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't immediately recognize. I opened it hesitantly, still conditioned to expect some manipulation from unknown contacts. "Just wanted to say the Tanzania itinerary was incredible. You've built something really special with Varity. No need to respond. Just wanted you to know your work made our anniversary magical. Catherine Blackwell." I smiled, screenshotting the message to share with my team later. These were the victories that mattered now. Not revenge, not one-upmanship, but genuine value creation. My assistant appeared in the doorway again. "Car's ready whenever you are for your lunch, and the charity board called. They've unanimously approved your proposal for the mentorship program." Thank you, Elise. I gathered my things, slipping my phone into my bag. Could you make sure the Iceland briefing is on my seat in the jet? I want to review the Northern Lights excursion details before landing. The elevator descended smoothly to the lobby, its mirrored walls reflecting a woman I was still getting used to seeing. Confident, centered, purposeful. The trauma of betrayal had left its mark, certainly, but it had also burned away what wasn't serving me, leaving something stronger in its place. Outside, the autumn air carried the scent of fallen leaves and distant rain, crisp and cleansing. I paused on the sidewalk, breathing it in deeply before sliding into the waiting car. "The Pierre Hotel, please," I instructed the driver. "I'm meeting Mr. Demetrio for lunch." As we pulled into traffic, I opened my bag and removed the leather journal that had once documented every slight and betrayal. Its pages had been filled with pain and plans for accountability. But recently, I'd started writing in it differently, noting moments of genuine connection, instances of surprising kindness from strangers, small joys that might otherwise have gone uncelebrated. I'd repurposed it as a gratitude journal, reclaiming the beautiful leather-bound book for something healing rather than vengeful. Today's entry would include Catherine's text and the approval of the mentorship program, an initiative that would help young women from disadvantaged backgrounds develop careers in the travel industry. At the Pierre, Stavros was already waiting in the dining room, rising to greet me with the traditional kiss on each cheek. "Maya, you look radiant, my friend. Success continues to suit you." "It's good to see you, Stavros." I settled into my chair as the waiter poured sparkling water into my glass. "How was your panel this morning?" "Enlightening. They asked about our partnership, of course. I told them it was the best business decision I've made in a decade." We fell into easy conversation about expansion plans, new destinations, sustainability initiatives. Not once did I feel the need to prove my worth or fight to be heard, the dynamic I'd grown so accustomed to with my former friends. Here, my voice was valued, my expertise respected without question. After lunch, I had an hour before my next meeting. On impulse, I directed my driver to detour through Chelsea, stopping outside a small boutique that had caught my eye the previous week. Inside, I selected a pair of luxuriously soft cashmere socks in a rich burgundy color, smiling at the symmetry as I handed over my credit card. Back in the car, I removed the gas station socks from a side pocket of my bag, the same pair I'd received on my birthday, never worn but carried as a reminder. I rolled down the window at the next red light and dropped them into a trash can on the corner, feeling no particular emotion as they disappeared from view. They had served their purpose as a catalyst, but I no longer needed physical reminders of that chapter. The jet waited at Teterboro, gleaming white against the tarmac. The pilot greeted me warmly as I boarded, and the flight attendant offered champagne as I settled into my seat. On the small table beside me, exactly as requested, lay a comprehensive briefing on my Iceland itinerary. As we taxied for takeoff, I sent a quick text to Elise. "Reached out to Miss Reyes. Offer her the position if references check out." Then, I switched my phone to airplane mode and leaned back in my seat, watching New York shrink beneath us as we climbed toward cruising altitude. Somewhere down there were 5 people who had once dominated my emotional landscape. Now they occupied no more space in my mind than any other distant acquaintance, acknowledged but not influential. The flight attendant approached with a leather portfolio. "Miss Parker, the information you requested about the new potential partners in Oslo. Would you like to review it now or after your rest?" "Now is perfect, thank you." As I opened the folder and began reading, I felt a sense of peaceful alignment, with my work, with my values, with myself. The Iceland trip wasn't just a vacation, it was a pilgrimage of sorts, a celebration of having found my true north. Later, as we flew over the vast Atlantic, I gazed out at the endless horizon. In my lap lay the open journal, Today's entry complete, except for one final thought. I picked up my pen and added a concluding line. The greatest gift my betrayers gave me was the opportunity to discover who I could become without them. I closed the journal and placed it in my bag, nestled beside the new cashmere socks I'd bought myself. Tomorrow, I would watch the northern lights dance across an Arctic sky. Next week, I would finalize the mentorship program that would help other young women find their voices. Next month, next year, and all the years after that belonged entirely to me. My choices, my values, my authentic connections. The flight attendant offered a blanket as the cabin lights dimmed for the transatlantic crossing. I accepted with a smile, wrapping the soft fabric around my shoulders as I settled in to watch the sunset from 40,000 feet. Up here, with the curved edge of the earth visible in the distance, betrayals seemed small, petty things. What remained was gratitude for the journey, all of it, even the painful parts, that had brought me exactly where I needed to be, exactly where I belonged.